We're live, guys.
Where do I start? Through the warmest cord of care, your love was sent to me. I'm not sure what to do with it or where to put it. I'm so close to tears and so close to simply calling you up and simply suggesting we go to that hidden place. That we go to that hidden place. Today we're talking about Bjork's fourth studio album, Vespertine.
Welcome to the Essential Albums podcast, where three guys from 85 have a conversation about some of the biggest albums ever and forgotten favorites from yesteryear. We'll dig into an album's place in culture, discuss its merits, and decide if a record holds up and is worth your time. Of course, we get into a lot more than that, so join longtime friends Brian, Denise, and Gordon as we dive into our favorite albums and relive some of the classics. All right, guys, so this week, Bjork. I'm not sure who picked this one.
I did.
That was Ryan.
Oh, the Ryan pick.
Yeah,
That's a Ryan pick.
Nice.
I might as well jump the gun. It's my favorite Bjork album, so
Oh, nice.
Really?
Let's kick it off.
it is. This is where I think it came out right at the time, like end of high school, sort of. No.
Yeah, it's 2001 release.
Okay.
So it would've been like
I came across
10
it at
grade-
end of high school.
Grade
but-
10, 11.
Yeah.
It was August, so it would have been like the summer before. I'll start this off by asking, is this the most, or the least mainstream album that we've talked about? Or is Bjork the least mainstream artist that we've talked about?
I think so. I think out of all the artists we've talked about so far, this is probably the one that's like at least this album, by the time this album came out, she kind of wasn't being at least played on much music. I'm not sure what the radio play was like, but
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I've ever heard
like
anything
in the early
Bjork's
days,
on the radio.
in the early 90s, like when all those music videos, like in the Daft Punk episode, she had cool music videos with the Spike Jones videos and stuff. So the stuff off of like Post and Debut and Homogenic and stuff were regulars on Much Music, at least. But by the time Vespertine came out, she was kind of more in the indie scene.
Interesting. So that's a weird trajectory, because didn't she come from the indie scene? Like, wasn't she in like a punk band or something?
Well, in the 80s.
Oh,
I don't know
like
if that was
back
a
in
punk
in
band,
the
but
I don't know if it was punk or what
like
it was.
Sugar Cubes?
Was that what it was called?
Yeah, Sugar Cubes.
Yeah, but that was, I don't know, she was really young though at those years. And there's a reason why her first album is called Debut.
Right.
Because she kind of like, okay, everything before that is kind of put to the wayside, and this is now my artistic journey.
Yeah, because to add on to what you guys are saying, I think the first three albums are probably like the most poppy, the most commercially successful. That's like you were saying, you have the big albums like Oh So Quiet, directed by Spike Jones. You have Hyper Ballad, directed by Michel Gondry, and that All Is Full of Love, directed by Chris Cunningham, with the robots and all that. So I mean, those were all poppy and mainstream, almost dancey, trip hop. What was popular at that time?
Yeah, because she was like playing at that point. It was like electronic music. Because I remember she was even on Much Music. They had a show once a month that played electronic music called Are You Receiving? And they used to play
Forgot about that show.
They used to play Bjork along with, Chemical Brothers, Orbital, and all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's dance music. Like on Debut, there's so many dance tracks.
Yeah.
It's like you go into the club in one of the songs. So yeah, clearly that's what it's about. But this album is not that.
No.
So is this where you think that this is a stark change from what she was doing?
Well, she always kind of had songs that would kind of fall into this more minimalistic or kind of trip hoppy kind of thing. But this was like the first full album where it was, just sort of all kind of downbeat music.
It is a pretty consistent album.
Yeah, for the type of, for her, especially because on her other albums you get everything. You'll get a pop song, a dance song, a slow song, kind of electronic song. Whereas this is kind of, it's almost like it's more of a concept or something that she had chose to make everything of the same, very similar.
Yeah, it's like you're in the same zone the whole time. It doesn't like bring you out too much.
Mm-hmm.
She seemed to do that more like with Medulla. I think it was was that right after? Or?
Yeah, Medulla was after.
Yeah, which was all another concept, like all the vocals through the whole thing.
It was almost like, because on Homogenic was kind of going into this direction, but the beats were almost like still kind of harder, whereas this, it got really soft sounding. And then by Medulla, it's a cappella, like it's beats made by people's mouths, so it's like as soft as it can get. And I don't know, around this time she was it wasn't really like catching my attention, some of the stuff that she was doing, but it was cool that she was, always kind of pushing music to different directions and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I would say I agree with the 2 points you guys were making. I think this is probably her most cohesive album up to that point.
Yeah.
And I think after this, it kind of marks a change. Like, that's when she really leans into, like, I don't care if I'm poppy, I'm making what I want to make, and I'm going to take chances and push the boundaries or whatever.
I mean, she already was.
But like, she leaned into that after this.
Was it a reaction against, like, her success? She's like, oh, I don't like being branded as this pop artist or whatever.
Well, I don't think anyone ever branded her as pop.
No, not
yeah.
really.
But I was actually thinking this week. This was almost, at this point, she actually started making the music that people thought she was making before, because she was always known as like the weird one. And when people would do like their impression of a Bjork song, it sounds more like something that would be on this as opposed to something that would be on like Post or on Homogenic.
Right.
Like, it got weirder, what you're saying. Yeah, but
well,
her
not
voice...
weirder, just the way people will, just the way people perception of her in their mind, even though like what Gordon was saying, like It's Oh So Quiet and all these other songs weren't really like that. It's just,
where does it come from then?
I don't know, just the fact that she's kind of, outsider music, kind of a weirdo.
Her vocals are kind of weird. Like, it's an easy thing to make fun of. It's not, you wouldn't need crazy songs to make fun of the voice, but
no,
I mean, it's special though.
Yeah, I like her voice. It's very distinct.
And she's definitely in control and is very powerful. So,
So yeah, I mean, we'll dive into that for sure, because I do want to talk about her voice more.
Good, I have more comments.
Cool. All right, so I guess we can kick this off by asking, what's your relationship with?
Well, like I was mentioning earlier, it was high school. It was right when we were recording Safe Life, actually. That's when I started listening to Bjork. I'm pretty sure...
What's Safe Life?
We don't need to talk about it.
Link in the description.
I'll just throw in a little detail. I was pretty sure I was watching the live Vespertine tour DVD while you're doing your sex scene upstairs. I'm pretty sure that was going on.
Okay, I'll add on to that, but like, you can finish your story, but I think our stories are probably really similar.
Okay, well, I mean, I was just blown away by that, and since I wasn't involved in the shoot, I was just like captivated by this performance. She had like a whole crowd of a choir behind her of, I guess, natives of whatever town she was touring. How I understood it was that she would get like an orchestra and a choir from like the town that she was actually touring, and that's how they made that DVD. I was just like blown away by all this stuff. I'm like, I didn't even know who Bjork was. Like,
really?
I maybe heard jokes about her. But...
Like, so your first introduction to Bjork was Vespertine?
Yes, yeah.
That's very
I mean, other
interesting.
than like maybe some of those videos I did, like Army of Me, I definitely remember, and I'm pretty sure Hyper Ballad. So there was that a bit coming through, but where else would I be exposed to Bjork? It's not like she's on like the rock radio station I was listening to back then.
You could have purchased a CD.
2001, man, it's new metal.
Oh, 2001, you could have downloaded a CD.
I know.
Very slowly.
Yeah, very slowly.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the downloading, because that plays a factor in this album. But so yeah, it was 2003, right around when I was like hanging out with you guys more often. So I think there was a party, probably at the same house we were shooting Safe Life at.
Yeah.
I was invited to, and I just remember hearing Bjork, and somebody's like, "This is Bjork," and I was like, or no, I heard the part in Pagan Poetry where she's like the "I love him" part, and I've never heard anything quite like that, like how vulnerable it is, and music just drops out, and then so I heard that, I'm like, what is this? And I can't remember who I asked, but they were like, "Oh, this is Bjork." I'm like, isn't she the one that like beat up that photographer? And that's just all I knew her by, right? Like, I didn't know her music, I didn't know anything. I can't remember, but I bought her greatest hits, and I think I bought it the following year, and that was my gateway into Bjork. So that pretty much is the greatest hits that her fans put together, and it covers just the first 4 albums.
Yeah.
So and that's probably where
right? There's tracks like remixes on that. Right?
No, it's just like straight up. Unless there's like tracks released just for that album, there's no remixes on it. It's all
on the greatest hits.
Yeah,
I remember the greatest hits. The way she did it, fans, because I think there was like a set of songs that were gonna be on it, then fans could vote in like the rest of it.
Oh,
because I remember it was like an online thing. You can go and vote in your, like, there were certain songs were blocked off. Like, obviously, like Hyper Ballad's gonna be on it and stuff like that, but there was like a selection of songs you could pick from to be on the greatest hits.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like, I didn't know it was from a selection, but basically it was like the fans chose. So the highest voted was the first song, and it worked its way down like that. So it's like 14 or 15 songs of just like mostly singles from the first 4 albums, right?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, singles. I swear it was different versions, but I'm gonna go back.
There could be an extended version. I didn't have
Yeah,
that. I only had the
especially
single
nowadays. There's like deluxe editions of everything.
disc, probably.
I just know that she often, like Bjork's kind of known for releasing the single and it being completely different, like, or not completely different, some other twist on it. Like it's not exactly the same. I'm thinking of off of Medulla. What is the name of the lead single off of that? Really, the only single.
I can't remember. The only song I remember her doing that for was "Big Time Sensuality," whereas
That's actually, I think that's what I'm thinking
where was
of.
the fluke remix as opposed to the original mix.
Yeah, I think that's the only
that's
song I've
probably
ever
it.
heard by her on the radio. Is "Big Time Sensuality."
Yeah, they used to love that in our university. But yeah, for me, Vespertine was a little different because I kind of Bjork was another one where my brother was more into her than I was, so I kind of had the CDs were in my house. You know, I had my favorite songs. I remember really liking Post and stuff, but I didn't really get into Homogenic until a little after it was released. But I remember buying Vespertine for my brother. I was going to the store, and he's like, "Oh, buy me Vespertine, it's out." I can't even remember what CD I was buying for myself, but I went back to look what came out around that time that it could have possibly have been. I'm like, it was probably Edema, the new metal band. Like I was probably buying Edema and bought my brother Bjork. But I remember this was the first Bjork album I was sort of like I listened to and was like, okay.
You didn't dig it.
I was just like, whatever. And I didn't start listening to it more until I remember being in college and I would, you know, you'd be studying and you want to put on music and Vespertine was like, oh, this is kind of perfect for that. It's just kind of being played kind of out of the way, nice soft beats. And I remember it was like this and Kid A and some other kind of
good study
minimal
mix.
Portishead, stuff like that became like study music for me. And that's how I kind of got into this album. But other than that, Bjork is more, I kind of was more into the stuff before that.
The poppier stuff. Yeah.
If you can call it poppy
Well,
stuff.
like
It wasn't poppy at the time.
If you compare her first 4 or 5 albums to her second 4 or 5 albums, I would definitely call it poppy. But you're right. I don't like it's not mainstream, and like you kind of have to like you have to have somebody has to tell you about it because you don't really find it anywhere unless you come across like a music video collection or something like kind of cool or interesting that she's doing or outrageous.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
For me, Bjork kind of falls into. I was trying to get to this in the Beck when we talked about Beck. I'm not sure if I worded it right, but they're the kinds of artists who, no matter what's going on in music, they're always kind of doing their own thing, and it's always good to listen to. Because even some of the like Bjork for me now, it's when she releases a new album, I'll usually download it on Spotify, listen to it a few times, and be like, okay, I kind of dig this, don't really dig that. Kind of pick out songs I like. I always try to pay attention to what she's doing because it's always something different.
Yeah.
Even though I do think her later stuff kind of started following the mold of Vespertine, she kind of lost her eclecticness of the beginning. It's almost like all the albums took on like a different concept or a different
They had
theme.
to be consistent.
Yeah, and they were all very... And something I also noticed that she started to lose at this time too was like she always had, to me at least, like a sinisterness in her early music. That was,
Army of Me, yeah.
that was sort of gone at this point. It kind of came back a little later on, like Biophilia and Vinicura or whatever you pronounce those words. Some of those sounds kind of came back. But yeah, on Vespertine, it's a lot more softer beats, a lot more delicate, which is perfect for studying too.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent. I think I was primed for it by like listening to a lot of post rock in middle to end of high school, like Sigur Rós and that stuff. I could easily put on an album and be like, oh, I'm into this. Like it wouldn't be. But if you came from listening to her like pop tunes and like the dancier stuff, you're gonna put this on and you're gonna be like, where is it?
I know you keep saying pop tunes, but when you listen to those albums, there are songs that are more akin to this. But
it's true.
Just the way they're constructed is. I feel like these are. I don't know. They're just
chill.
a lot cleaner.
It's like an environment.
They're a lot cleaner. Yeah, like they're that's how they're made. That's how they're supposed to be presented. Whereas before, you could kind of like hear the samples and hear the production and I don't know. To me, there's always a character in that. I know it's like a running theme. I always mention stuff like that, but I find there's a lot more character. I like the character and stuff like that. Whereas, this good album. Like, don't get me wrong, but I'm more attracted to stuff that has more of an edge.
Well,
I'm straight edge like that.
I kind of feel like this is an album like the the live show says it all. You sit down and you go watch this performance and you take in this atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're going there for a dance party. It's a different sort of thing.
When I saw Bjork, it was a dance party.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was after this.
I know.
It was when Volta came out, and it was a hell of a time. After the way I witnessed Bjork live, if you were to tell me, oh, let's go see Bjork live and sit, I'd be like, what? Sit down?
Yeah, but for this album, though,
it makes sense. Yes.
It does totally make sense.
Yeah.
It like you said, the samples don't stand out, but like it's kind of like everything is supporting this atmosphere, so I can see why.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that when she was touring for this album, she made sure that it was like in the best venues with the best acoustics.
Yeah.
And so like the Hummingbird Center is where she did it in Toronto, and she wanted to like emphasis on the strings and like the choir stuff. Like, so that was a huge sticking point for her.
Yeah, that DVD is great. Watch that DVD.
Yeah.
Like,
I know, it's crazy.
That's what blew me away.
She has like live albums of like every album.
Yeah, I know. When I was listening to her like her Spotify, it's like there's so much stuff, but like it's like okay, yeah, you have like 3 or 4 like full length like live albums, like one for Post, one for the first 3 or 4, and then it's like then she's got soundtrack stuff, and then she's got other like remix stuff. So it's like she's just always making music.
Yeah, it's great.
I looked it up. The pronunciation for that album is Volnicura.
Volnicura.
Yeah, so I looked it up and I phonetically spelled it out here.
Yeah,
just so I got it.
For me, I feel like sometimes when I don't even try to pronounce words, I'll just look at the shape of it and be like, okay, that's the shape of that word.
We'll go with that. So I'll throw that one away.
That's how reading works.
I don't need to know what the word means.
All right, so yeah, this album, I guess that can get us into some song questions. So the 3 singles from this album were Hidden Place, Pagan Poetry, and Cocoon. So I guess the first question we can ask here is, what was your first experience with the album? Like, in terms of the singles, or was it just for you? Was it strictly just that video?
I keep saying DVD, like our listeners know what a freaking DVD is. Yes, the live video. That was my first experience, and then I got this album. I don't remember how.
Was it a blind buy, or like had you heard it enough to like?
I hadn't heard this album at all. Okay. I only heard the live stuff.
Gotcha.
So it's a bit different. Like it's a little bit more minimal, but it's still, she definitely achieved the same atmosphere with the live show, or at least the same vibe. Like it didn't take I wasn't like disappointed
kind of vibe, I guess.
I wasn't disappointed like where are all the strings or anything like that. There's still enough of this stuff on the album. So
when you go back and you visit like her other, like when you went back and revisited her older stuff, were you like turned off? Because generally you lean more in the rock direction of music as opposed to like the dancey kind of stuff based on previous episodes that we've done.
Yeah, I kind of just, the other albums I would skip around more. Okay. I think, well, the earlier stuff I would skip around more, and then Medulla I didn't like very much. Like there wasn't much on it.
I was the same way, because there's some points, like, don't get me wrong, like I love her voice, but there's some points where it's just her voice singing, and it's like, okay,
this is what they make fun of you for.
Yeah, not that. It's just I'm not like, you know, if it wasn't Bjork, I wouldn't even have that album on. You know what I mean? So,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's kind of exposing me to something like that, but at the same time, it's like not akin to my taste. So yeah, I'll listen to it and be like, okay, this is kind of cool. I like what she's doing, but yeah, I'm never gonna really listen to it much.
You know, okay, I feel like this might be controversial. Most singers fall into these like habits of like little vocal motifs that they like and they will do without even noticing it. The thing Bjork does at this point, I feel like all of her melodies are almost all of that now. Like when I listen to it, I just hear other songs. I'm like, oh, I've heard you do this in this song. I've heard you do this in this song, which is so strange because if she's pushing like her art and she's trying to be creative, why is it a hands off the melodies? Is it just like that's too much of her personality to switch up to?
But the thing is, like, I know you're saying that about her melodies, but for me, it's the same thing with just the overall packaging of the music, where it's like now it's like, okay, the new album is fine or whatever, but you can pluck a song off of that album and kind of drop it onto anything pretty much post Vespertine minus Volta.
Yeah. Which is weird.
Yeah.
because she was big on the concepts for at least a while. Like
Yeah.
what she's done that now.
So I guess we can talk about her voice a little bit. Like, do you think she relies too much on like almost like gimmicks, or like once you've listened to like the first 4 albums, you know what you're gonna get for like everything after, or do you think? I'm
No,
not sure.
I would-
Like, do you think she's played that card too much?
I wouldn't say you know what you're gonna get after, because like when Vespertine came out, because I know for me, like my first experience with it, I heard, at that point I'm like, okay, maybe I actually do like Bjork, because I'm at the point now I kind of was able to hear the older albums because my brother had purchased them like secondhand or whatever, and I was downloading, so I'm like, I was kind of up to date with her, so I'm like, okay, now I'm ready for the next thing, and it was Vespertine, and I remember hearing Hidden Place before it came out and liking it and being like, oh, okay, this is kind of different. You're kind of ready for something like that because of Radiohead with Kid A like 2 years before that. But then the rest of them was like, oh, it's kind of the same. I'm like, she's not doing the stuff that I kind of got into her for, and then kind of got into her after. But yeah, but like you were saying, it seems like she's kind of stuck with this part of.
You know, for me, it was like, okay, so Vespertine, that's where I got into this, and so I soaked up all these melodies like they were fresh, right? And then the next album was Medulla, and I was like, what the hell? So it's kind of similar to your experience.
Yeah. But for me, it was just the music, like the overall music, and for you, is the melody.
So I don't know. I don't know what that is. I think maybe it's just she's not conscious of it, or not purposely not being conscious of it, or it's hard when you're in it to know unless anybody tells you. Maybe everybody's too afraid to tell.
Maybe she's into it. Like the critics are loving it. Like everything she's released is always like end of year lists. It's everything's well reviewed. I don't know. Maybe we're just not arty enough to appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to that, she kind of strikes me as like a musician's musician. Like a normal person or somebody who just listens to the radio, maybe not as serious into music, probably won't like her. But like if you're into music in any kind of way, you're probably gonna be a Bjork.
Well, that's why I'm saying, even though like I might not be digging her new stuff as much as her old stuff, she is an artist I do think you should pay attention to, because she is always kind of doing something different and exposing different types of things. Even though I do think now it's not as much as before, but she's influenced enough music as well that you kind of hear versions of her now with like Grimes and people like that. So
have either of you guys gotten into her writing process much? Like I only know little surface bits from interviews I've seen, and like for this album, she teamed up with a couple of guys, right? A couple like electronic producer guys.
She kind of started doing that like right from the hop. She'd always work with different producers and different songwriters. It seems like she generally writes her stuff herself, but like she gets together with different producers.
I don't know exactly what the relationship is, like her musicality. Maybe it's because she's not playing an instrument. I don't know, but it's just like in the room. Is she giving more artistic direction, or is she giving specific musical direction? Like here are these chords.
Well, she's doing arrangements for strings, choir, harp. Programming.
Well, she's doing all this.
Yeah,
like
she is doing stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I know that. Well, then why can't she alter her vocal melodies?
I don't know. Maybe it's just her voice. I don't know.
Whatever.
But like,
I want a new hook. Damn it.
For this album, she was pretty upset because a lot of people were giving like too much criticism to the producers, and she's like, I made like over 80% of that album. I spent 3 years making all those beats, all those arrangements, but they always
the
other people get credited.
Oh wow.
She's like, and then those producers would often correct the interviewee when it's like, hey, what did you put this beat together? And it's like, oh no, I didn't do that. Like I put drums over top of it, but like she did everything.
I think that's just part of being a woman in the music industry.
That could very well be.
Yeah. It's like she's doing something different and interesting. It's like, oh, it can't be her.
Can't be all her.
Can't be her.
Science. No.
Well, that's good. I just I want some new hooks. This album has got some great melodies in it, more consistently than any other of the albums that I've heard. I don't know. You guys say the same thing or no?
Sure.
Maybe.
I guess, yeah.
Well, because this is more focused. Like this is one of the albums, especially like one of the first albums where it's kind of more focused. Because before she had songs where, it's more focused on her voice, like Bachelorette and Yoga and stuff like that. But on this, it's like the whole album. Every single song is kind of built around her voice. And then Medulla takes that to the next level where every sound on the album is made from voices.
Yeah.
So to go back to what you were asking about the writing process, I think she just puts a lot, starting with this album especially, but she puts a lot of what she's going through at the time into her work, into her writing. So like this is when she started dating her partner, Matthew Barney, and they started dating. I think they dated for 13 or 14 years. So this album is often regarded as like it's her being happy, her falling in love. It's very intimate. So that's where she's pulling all this from. Plus, she had a terrible time working on Dancer in the Dark. So she wanted to make something that was kind of the opposite of that. But then if you look at Volnicura, that album's actually a breakup album. And it's like tied, like, so she broke up with that Matthew Barney guy. They had a kid together, but they broke up years later. And that album is like, you can follow it, apparently like in the liner notes, you can follow it along. So like the first few songs, there's like few months before the breakup, 1 month before the breakup, and so it's like following her progression, like she's in denial that's going to happen. And then there's a song on there called Black Lake, which is like 10 minutes long, and it's like strings and like aggressive electronica under it. It's a pretty crazy song. And then that's the breakup song, and then the songs that are after are the months after. So that album's like retroactively, it's like makes this album almost depressing, because it takes like everything that's joyful on this album and just tarnishes it, and that's how you hear everything on that album. So it's an interesting way of looking at those two albums. Like it's almost like a weird sequel.
I had no idea. Is that what she was touring when we saw her at V-Fest? No.
So that would have been like, because we saw V-Fest, right? That was like 07 or 08.
Yeah.
So that album came out in 2015.
Oh, that's pretty new.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, it's like her second newest album. So that's why like I think Utopia, which is like her newest album, she was like, I just want to make something where I'm like happy again, and like I think that's why it's called Utopia.
Yeah.
So it's like totally different.
I didn't really dig that album that much.
Utopia?
No?
Yeah.
Is it like Vespertine?
Forget the single. There's a single on it that I heard today that's like good. But yeah, I mean, we can get to the ranking later, but yeah, it's not as high on my list as the other stuff, or some of the other stuff. So I guess we can dive into some song questions. I said the singles. What do you think is the biggest song from this album, Anise?
I think I'd say Hidden Place. I think that was the first single. I don't know. When we first talked about doing this, that was like the first song that came to my head. I'm like, oh, that's the one with Hidden Place, right? Yeah. Because usually that's how I remember her albums. Like, there's usually one song. It's like, that's the one with this one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's almost like the catchiest one. It's the one that comes into my mind, or pops into my mind first. How about you, Ryan?
Well, I didn't know what the singles were, so.
Well, you can say
it's one of my favorite songs.
It's just the biggest song, so whatever one you think is the biggest.
Well, how are you going to judge what the hell's the biggest? Like, I have no idea where this stuff... Like, I didn't hear any of this in any media other than, like, just actively getting the CD.
So
and so I have no idea how pop culture, like, views this album.
Well, I don't know if it's pop culture, but, like, when this album was coming out, it was just sort of, was released online with the video and...
Oh, yeah. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Because Hidden Place always strikes me... Maybe I've just heard that song a lot from the various means, Grace Hits and whatnot, that, like, I always think of Hidden Place, I think of this album.
Yeah.
There's a lot of standout tracks for me, and Hidden Place was one of them, but it wasn't my favorite. Anyway, I have no idea which one's the biggest. Ask the fans. Let's poll the fans.
Well, yeah, like and subscribe and comment below. All right, so I guess we could probably just knock this one out. Is there an overplayed song on this? We can say no.
No.
Because people don't even...
When?
Okay, so we'll cross that one out.
Even when she was getting played like on Much Music and MTV, I don't think anything was really being overplayed.
No.
Because I remember like back in the day, like when you would see like, Human Behavior or one of her videos, it was almost like a treat. Like, oh shit, it's playing Bjork. Like it wasn't very common to get the video, like one song specifically over and over and over again. You just kind of get drops of each single kind of
for sure
once a week or something.
Yeah, they're not. She's still weird. Like it's not top 40 stuff. None of them. None of her songs. It's just probably because of her voice or whatever. But
where you wouldn't really know where to fit her in before that, because you'd have a song like Army of Me, which is kind of almost industrial, and then you have It's Oh So Quiet as like a big band.
Yeah. What do we do?
I'm not gonna lie. Like I didn't see any of her music videos until I got the director's label DVDs, and then like there's so many of her videos on like those three directors. So That's where I saw like So Quiet and Hyper Ballad.
I should try to find
time.
if we can find like an old VCR. I have like VHS tapes of just
taped off of much
music.
We'll just watch
TV.
We'll just watch Are You Receiving?
And there's there's like full shows. Like if they did like an Intimate and Interactive, that'd be recorded, or like a Spotlight, that'd be recorded. I just recorded everything. I don't know why. For the archives.
So I could watch it later.
Yeah, so I can watch it later because it's not like it's gonna be any. There's no other way to watch it, you know. There's not like there's YouTube or anything.
Oh, jeez.
So I guess this can kick us off with our next question. What do you think, Ryan? What do you think what's your favorite song from this album?
It's Not Up to You. I just love it when that chorus hits. It's just the big release, and it's got a nice pulse to it. And the lyrics, I mean, you can relate to lyrics to a lot of things. It shouldn't be. I don't think the lyrics mean, don't have any responsibility, but it kind of means like, don't push too hard for one specific thing because it's not up to you. The details.
Yeah, I really like the chorus on that song too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I like
with the choir and.
Yeah, I like the way how big it gets. Like it starts quiet, going from Cocoon into that. You're kind of like almost like whispers, or it's just really quiet, and then once that chorus hits, it's like.
Yeah, the
epic.
bass,
Like,
those quarter notes. Good.
And she's still whispering. Like there's one part where she kind of whispers, like around. I put like around 3:20, and then the unthinkable surprises. Like she's kind of whispering, and then it hits the second chorus. Yeah,
the bridge.
That stuff's good. How about you, Anise? What's your favorite?
Probably my favorite is Pagan Poetry.
Good one.
I remember that was one of the first ones that kind of because I remember like I liked Hidden Place when it came out. Then I heard the album, I'm like, I was kind of whatever on it, and then when Pagan Poetry was released as a single, you kind of re-listen to it in a different, like kind of isolated, and you're like, the song is actually really cool.
Yeah, that's one of my standouts too.
Yeah, and it has like one of the heavier beats on it, I guess.
As heavy as this album.
As heavy as this album gets. And I like the music boxes. I guess I was reading that she was like collecting a bunch of music boxes, and she didn't know like how she's gonna use them, and this is the song that she uses it. And it's funny you guys were mentioning. I don't know if it was before the show at the beginning, like Gila.
Oh yeah, I mentioned.
I like when the background vocal when she's saying I love him, but then when the background vocals come in, it says she loves him.
Yeah. Oh man, and that part on the live show, the live video is so good because you see the choir doing it, right?
It's just funny on the album because it's her singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Anise. That was the first song that kind of just arrested my attention, and from that point on, like that moment, the I love him part, I was just like, I've never heard a voice that vulnerable. Like it's so great. So yeah, it's the first song that I heard. It's the one that I always go back to. And then I watched a music video this week for the first time, and it's like
that was a big deal.
It was like because there's like nudity in it, and it's like the super tight close-ups of like her mouth or like nipples being pierced or skin being pierced. So. She didn't do any of the piercings. There was like five other women that did it for her.
There was kind of like a big deal at the time too, because she released that video and it's like, oh, it's not gonna get played on TV, and it was
MTV banned it.
Yeah,
they were like,
of course,
nudity, you can't show that.
Yeah, but so that was my first time seeing it. I had to click like I understand that it has mature content.
Another song I liked was and I didn't realize another song I liked on the album that I didn't realize was like pretty much a cover or a remake was Heirloom. Because it's just the song Crabcraft by Console, but it's according to him, he remade the song from scratch and she sings over it. But I listened to the song this week and I'm like, did he make it from scratch? Or did she just sing over it?
Sounds like somebody cut some corners.
But I like that song too. It kind of sounds like the Casio keyboard at the beginning.
Yeah.
It has has that sinister sound that I like.
Yeah.
And the warpy bass line.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that can take us to an underrated song. I had that for the underrated song. I like how it started out with almost like a Dust Brothers like Fight Club drum machine kind of sound to kick it off, and then pretty much just like a chill vibe. You got a little bit of like almost like drum and bass kind of pulsing under it. So yeah, I thought that was a fairly underrated song. I mean, it's hard to call anything underrated. This whole album's like technically underrated.
I would say Anise would disagree, but yes.
Why would I disagree?
Well, I mean, you were underwhelmed by it. You were like, so it's rated accurately.
It's rated, I don't know. Sure.
I don't know. Underrated songs. I think that Unison, I'm going to say it's probably underrated just because it's like near the end of the album.
I know. I was going to say the same thing, Unison, because it's the same reason near the end. And I find that that's an actual song that kind of has a pace to it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, unlike
and
the other
it's got a
songs.
nice melody and everything. So it could be, upper in. But I get why it's near the end. It's even more chill than some of the earlier stuff. So
Yeah, I thought that song was kind of like the closest to like a modern rock song or indie rock song that you would hear like now, like today's rock, whatever you want to call that. But yeah, I thought that was the closest to like a straight up rock song that we get on this album. We're pretty far removed from that.
yeah.
Just an interesting question. I know a lot of people just reading the critic reviews and stuff like that. It seems like nobody can like clearly define what genre this album is in. What do you think it's just electronica, or what genre would you throw this in?
Yeah, geez. Well,
Do you call it rock?
Well,
we're so far away from rock music. There's like, is there a guitar on the thing?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it rock music.
I mean, everybody said it was like folk with electronic, so electronic folk.
Yeah,
or whatever.
folk. Cause like on Wikipedia, they have it as electronica, art pop, glitch pop, ambient, folktronic, minimal techno, psychedelic.
Yeah, all of those.
Which is okay, sure, but it's one of I don't know. Hate getting into genre, but I guess folktronica maybe is the most fitting. I don't know if that's even a thing. If I had to choose one,
that's what it feels like.
Yeah,
it feels like folk music just with like some drum machines.
Yeah, but it's also like really glitchy, so I guess it's glitch pop.
Yeah.
And it's like mostly like micro beats, so it's like
Very
noises
minimal.
and ambient and stuff. So I'm like, I don't even know.
Like it's just Bjork.
Yeah, this is
Throw it
why.
away. It's Bjork. She's got it.
This is why this is one of the reasons why you have to listen to Bjork, because Ryan sits here and says her poppy stuff, but she's not really poppy. We
Yeah,
talk about
that's
her
true.
making club music, but you don't really hear her in a club.
No.
It's just Bjork. She kind of does what she pleases.
Yeah. She represents.
Yeah, because
Iceland.
it's almost like she's there's it's not like there's no other music being made that's similar, but she's kind of putting her own flair to it and kind of putting it out in the world. And since she's sort of a name, it's kind of bringing more notoriety to these super subgenres. Because now you might be like, what's folktronica?
Yeah, the fact that you had to list all these weird things to try to describe her.
These
just
weird
means
genres I never heard of. Yeah.
there's
Yeah, you can't
definitely no
pin her down,
label.
I guess.
No.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, like, other than musically, like, she doesn't have a sound. Her sound is all in her voice, right? Like, that's the most distinct thing. And like, you hear like, I don't know, you hear like a rock band like Pearl Jam, for example. You're like, they have a sound, right? Like, you kind of know what a Pearl Jam song sounds like. But with this, it's like, what's a Bjork song? It's like, no.
Maybe that's
We're
why she
talking
doesn't
poppy
want to
stuff?
touch the voice.
Well, that's the thing. That's my criticism, if you want to call it that, for the newer stuff, because now there is a sound, whereas before you can kind of say, oh yeah,
right.
there isn't really a sound, but now you can be like, yeah, I make a minimalistic, kind of electronic song with soft beats, with a little sinister vibe to it, and put a delicate voice, and boom, I got a Bjork song.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What was that name of that dude? Remember United States of whatever, that guy?
Oh.
But he had a song he had a couple songs, but one of on his album where he'd make fake versions of other bands, and he had a song that was called Fake Bjork Song, and it was actually pretty good.
It's like right on.
And it sounded like Bjork, like, yeah, this could be a Bjork song. But again, it's like Bjork could be anything.
Yeah. Liam Lynch.
Liam Lynch, yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought of that too. I'm like, what's like a Bjork sound? I'm like, you could honestly tell me right now that her next album is going to be it's going to consist entirely of like bird calls and ribbix, and with additional production by like fuck buttons, and I'd be like, sure, yeah, that sounds about right.
I was super excited for Medulla. I was like, oh, it's all vocals, weird.
I know, like Rozelle was going to be on it. I was like, Rozelle?
Yeah.
Hold on, no.
Funny side note about like that Medulla thing. She has on a few of the tracks, she has like those Inuit like throat chanting women or whatever. And with everything going on with the Royals this week, my wife showed me a TikTok of like, she's like, look how like racist the Royals are, and it's like a video of literally those girls like doing a thing in front of the Royals, and what's his name, Prince Charles just starts like laughing and like turns to his wife and like starts like making a joke, and she's like, look at how racist. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a Bjork song though. So yeah,
maybe he just doesn't like Bjork. So
I mean, it is pretty weird if you've never heard that before, but like it fits well on the Bjork album, especially only on that album would you find something like that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad she does the weird stuff. Like, I'm glad she did Medulla, even though I didn't like that much. I'm glad that she's trying to do new stuff. I'd rather that than just sink into a formula.
I'm the same. Yeah, like I'm glad that she's at least trying to do something different.
Yeah, lean into
like we
it.
complain so many times
when bands repeat themselves.
Yeah, when bands repeat themselves, and that's my biggest complaint is she's not even repeating herself now. It's just kind of all falling in the same sort of lane, whereas I feel before she was more all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
What was your underrated, Denise? Did you say the last track?
Yeah, I was with Ryan. Same thing. Unison.
Has anybody heard this track 13, Gorgeous Palm Stroke?
Generous Palm Stroke? No. It's on the Japanese edition. No, I never heard it.
I'm just checking Spotify.
I know.
Like 12,
I didn't look, but I was like, oh, is that at the bottom of here? Because usually Spotify will have them, but I know sometimes with exclusives, it's like because I know for some albums they will pop up on streaming years later because it'll be like a contract, like for 20 years is exclusive to the whatever release.
Oh yeah. They weren't when they wrote that contract. They weren't expecting Spotify.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I had a question. Harm of Will. Harmony Korine? Question mark.
So apparently he wrote the lyrics for that song. It's not bit from a movie or anything. Apparently, like she like talked to him and he was like, "Yeah, I can write some lyrics for you."
Because when I saw Harmony Korine, and people who don't know Harmony Korine, like wrote the movie Kids and directed
Spring Breakers,
and some other weird.
Well, was it Boys? No, was it Boys?
I can't remember.
What was that '90s movie? Yeah, I gotta look them up. Kids. Yeah. There you go, Boys.
But yeah, so when I saw that, I'm like, Harmony Korine. I'm like, did she sample something from one of his movies or something? I didn't really look too much into it, but he wrote the lyrics?
Yeah, he has like a legit writing credit.
Is that just a one-off thing? He's like, yeah, I'll write lyrics for a song.
I don't think he's kind of a weird guy too, though.
Yeah, he's a weird guy.
He could have like
Has he been canceled? I feel like he's been canceled.
Is he? Probably.
Seems like a guy that'll
What'd he do?
Seems like someone who will be canceled.
Like I remember hearing like Larry Clark, who directed Kids, and he wrote Kids. They like apparently a fun and weird sidebar, but I remember hearing a story that they went up to like she wasn't even an actress, she was just a girl in Brooklyn, but they went up to Rosario Dawson maybe it wasn't Brooklyn, but in New York somewhere, and they just saw her on the street and they liked her look and they're like, "Hey, do you want to be in our movie?" And then she's like, "Well, I'm only like 15 or whatever, but I'll have to like talk to my mom." So she got consent, but like when her mom like read the script, it was like, "What the fuck?" Like, and who are these weirdos? Like these guys are like look like drug addicts. If you ever watch any interviews with Harmony Korine, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm a pretty casual Bjork fan. So I don't really have any songs that I skip. If I listen to this album, I'm going to throw it on and listen to it. Like I think you have to kind of be in a specific mood to listen to this. So if I'm going to throw it on, I'm going to listen to it. I don't know. Maybe you listen to it enough to have a song that you skip.
I don't know. If I listen to the album, I listen straight through because it's consistent. It's one of those albums that doesn't take you out. Like if you want to be in a place, you put this album on.
Like a hidden place?
Like a hidden place. While you're studying.
The only song like I remember skipping while I was studying was the song Aurora.
Really?
Because I find it a little more harsh. Like I'm not a fan of the elements and like especially the beginning. Not really. It's kind of harsh on your ears. And hard on your ears, especially if you're studying or like the times I listen to this album is, I'm kind of relaxing or like laying in bed or something. That's the time I will throw on this era Bjork music, and a song like that is kind of it's a little more harsh.
Yeah, I can see. You're going for a zone, right?
Yeah.
And if it takes you out, you just skip the track. But there are tracks I like. It's not up to you. I put it on all the time on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Pagan Poetry too.
For me too. I'm
and
like
Unison.
I'm like Gordon. So for me, I'm more of a casual, especially with the later stuff. But yeah, there's some songs like I like Cocoon. Gives me some Kid A vibes, and it kind of reminds me of Teenager by Deftones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but no, I like that song.
You can see that song Teenager. You can trace my like history of listening to soft music. Starts with Teenager, goes through post rock, ends up with Bjork, Vespertine. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I find Aurora could almost be like a skip song that you skipping on. That sounds weird to say, but because like Frosty, the track before it, those two tracks kind of blur together like musically, or they overlap a little bit. Yeah, so easy true. Just to kind of like.
Are those wind chimes on Frosty? Is that what that is?
It's actually from what I saw, it was a music box as well.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
it sounded like wind chimes.
I assumed it was the same.
But it could be box. Yeah, it could be wind chimes on it. But yeah, I know that one had a music box on it for sure. So, are there any tracks that you guys want to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Sun in My Mouth is a good song. I don't know what to say about it. But it's
short.
Good.
It's really short.
But it's just got great melodies. Like there's so many really nice melodies on this album consistently.
That's one where her like voice definitely stands out.
Yeah.
I had
guess that's what it means.
Harm of Will. I like the epic sounding strings like around the chorus, like the swirling strings and stuff like that. So if you're into strings, I think that's.
It's funny because I wouldn't notice like an element, but it's funny because a lot of the elements of like the harp and the strings and the choir they're all over this album, but sometimes I'll be like, oh wow, this sounds really cool. Like this harp sounds really cool here. And then you go look, it's like, oh, the harp was used on like 3 other songs prior. I didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
But not like if you're not noticing it, it's just kind of like certain elements just stand out more in certain songs.
For sure. Maybe that's how it has a consistent, like it does have a consistent feel, like almost feels like the same color to me, this album. Like maybe that's just because they keep using these instruments spread out and you don't even notice them till they stick out.
Yeah, well, it's just a bunch of instruments with like very soft, like it's all about the softness, like the harp, the music boxes, pretty much everything involved in it, which kind of, it's all mood setting.
Yeah.
That's why for me, when you get to a song like Aurora, where you kind of get the more harsher elements, it's kind of harder on your ears as opposed, whereas like, you know, not like I'm opposed to stuff that's harsh on my ears, but in context of the album, it kind of stands out.
Takes you out a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes when I hear the harp, I think just some of the random notes in it, I guess, is like, I think of like my cell phone alarm. I just have like the default alarm that came with Android. So start hearing that harp. Yeah, exactly.
That's mine too.
That's funny. So yeah, the reason why she went with a lot of strings and harps and stuff like that was because of Napster was blowing up around this time. So to avoid the compression issues and stuff like that, she intentionally chose strings that wouldn't suffer because of that.
And she wanted to find stuff that would sound good on compute because people are downloading, listening on a computer. So it'd sound good on the computer.
Yeah.
So she's like embracing
it. Way ahead of her time. Now she's making music for the
because it was a back-to-back. Because like, again, like I know I mentioned it earlier because like Kid A kind of primed us, but it seemed like this was, I always kind of related Radiohead and Bjork because they kind of did the same sort of jump around the same time and they shared fans and they were kind of embracing the internet.
Weird voice.
You know, like Radiohead was selling their CD for like $5 or whatever and leaking it online so people can hear it. And Bjork was making songs that would sound good on a computer and polling their fans for votes for the greatest hits, you know. I always like it when the artists are actually embracing the technology and not taking them to court like Metallica.
So yeah, I wasn't going to bring up Radiohead, but I kept thinking, is there some sort of like parallel between these two? Like, do they influence each other in some way or do they just have similar fans? Like, I don't know. Because when you hear Kid A, it seems like Kid A might have had an influence on this, but then you hear this, and then it's like, did this influence Hail to the Thief? Because there's some tracks on Hail to the Thief that are like...
I just remember a lot of my friends from like high school that were getting into, you know, they were big Radiohead fans, all became huge Bjork fans.
This is about the time I was becoming a Radiohead fan.
You guys were my friends.
There you go. Yeah. This is when I started to embrace Radiohead and Bjork.
Like both of you guys and Kyle, I remember was all like Bjork.
Yeah,
like everyone was just
shout out to Kyle.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, honestly, thought Kyle was the one that picked this album.
No,
I didn't know
he picked next week's album.
Oh, nice.
Which is Radiohead.
Ooh.
There we go. I don't think they're influencing each other. Like I don't think that's going on.
But I think it's coming from where the music is coming from. It's all coming from the same place because it's not like I know in the mainstream people like to act like Kid A or even Vespertine were like these groundbreaking albums, but there's been minimalistic electronica and trip hop and
for sure
all this stuff going on for years. They were just sort of plucking influence from it and using it, but it wasn't like there was still Boards of Canada and like Portishead and other people doing similar stuff, or Plastic Man, which was even more minimalistic than all this stuff. But
maybe it's just because for both of those bands, this was like a left turn.
Yeah, a little bit. So, more for Radiohead than Bjork, but yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So I guess this takes us to, the artwork. I never owned this album. There's only I only own 3 Bjork albums, or maybe 4, but I own The Greatest Hits, and I own Post and Homogenic. Those are 3 that I like the most. But
yeah.
Did you own this album?
I had this one and Post. Not anymore. Crack CD case somewhere upstairs.
Well, CDs are coasters now,
but yeah. This one I had. I had to buy it after watching because I hadn't heard any of the tracks. I didn't know any about these singles, so I had to listen to the actual studio version after seeing the live thing.
Yeah, so on the cover of this album, she's wearing her swan dress.
Yeah.
From the Academy Awards. So that's kind of a weird thing that I remember her from, leading into this and all that stuff. But yeah, she's wearing her swan thing, and the whole thing, everybody talks about how it's meant to show the layers to it, and she's trying to, even though it's a very intimate album and she's posed in a very almost erotic way, she's still trying to conceal her face and hide and she's got the swan graphic over top of it.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a layer that represents like her and this album.
That swan dress almost made her more famous. Just
It
her
has its own
wear-
Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
True, yeah. There was a lot of
It's
that.
funny because like Bjork was she was known throughout the '90s as like this quirky, artist making interesting, cutting edge music, and then after that swan dress thing, it just everyone just knew Bjork. They were making fun of her on like
Yeah.
SNL all of a sudden.
I think I do remember witnessing that.
Yeah, so it's almost like she achieved like a second level. I guess she was also wearing that swan dress because she was at the Oscars because she was nominated for one
that
for
too.
acting. So that was also
Oh no,
a big,
best song.
best song. Sorry,
yeah.
but she was also like, did Dancer in the Dark have any nominations?
I think that's the only one.
That's the only one. Okay,
Yeah.
but she was nominated for an Oscar. That's why
I
was
think she
there.
won like the Palme d'Or or something like
Okay,
that. Yeah.
okay.
She won other awards.
Yeah, I guess the Oscars. She's a musician. They can't honor her for acting.
That's right. It's like stay in your lane. I always remember that dress just for like how crazy it was, but then it's kind of regarded as like one of the best or one of the greatest Oscar dresses ever. Like I didn't even realize when looking it up today, I saw that it had its own Wikipedia article and like it's up there with like some Audrey Hepburn dress and like some other dress like from
J Lo's green dress at the MTV Awards.
that one oddly wasn't included, but I always thought that dress was iconic. Maybe it wasn't an Oscar dress.
No, it was MTV Awards.
Oh, was it? I just remember when that was Trey Parker award too, like the next year.
That was at the Oscars though.
Was that the Oscars? Even better. That's why I'm all confused. I'm all fucked
I
up.
know
on that.
it's easy to confuse Trey Parker and Jennifer Lopez.
Happens all the time. All right, so I guess we can ask some broader album questions here. How often is this album in your rotation, Eddie?
This album, very little, I'd have to say. For when I do jump back to Bjork, it's usually like those first three and Volta. I probably listen to those the most. If from this, it'd probably be just certain songs like Pagan Poetry, Hidden Places, Heirloom, just certain songs I would probably pluck out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, it's just more songs than anything. Well, back, like I was saying before, it'd just be like a study album, whereas now it might be, it might be on a playlist with other songs that are more down tempo.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she does call this album like she compared to Homogenic. She said that's more like a summer album, and she said this one's more like a chill winter album. You're supposed to listen to it at home.
Yeah.
It's an intimate album. How about you, Ryan? How often is this one in your rotation?
Well, this is more than any of the other albums. There was a phase where I was listening to Debut a lot, but I would say I go back to it, I don't know, a couple times a year. That's a lot for me, considering it's pretty old.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those sit down, get in the zone, and ride through the whole album.
Is there like a nostalgia with this album based on like since it's your first, the timing of when you discovered it? Like...
Yeah, you know what? Like I probably listen to it and then I wait long enough for the nostalgia factor to build up, and then I'll listen to it again.
I know sometimes like an album like this, it seems like it's best rediscovered.
Yeah.
Like you rediscover it, might be obsessed with it for a week or two, and then you might not listen to it for a couple of years even, but then you'll rediscover it again, listen to it for a week or two.
It definitely brings me back to that recording of our film there. So it does definitely brings back to the time where I first listened to it.
Yeah. I think I align more with Anise on this. I'm a pretty casual Bjork fan, so I listen to the first three. I'll throw on, usually if I do Bjork, I'll do like the first four. Like I'll do it. I think after this is where she kind of loses me with like her 2000 stuff. I know this one came out in 2000, but like post this album, I don't follow it as closely. Like Volta's good. I remember that one. Is that the one with like the Timberland beats on it? Or he worked with her or something?
Did he? I don't remember who she worked with, but that was the one that
this is what we saw on tour.
Yeah. Like Earth
yeah.
Intruders
So like Declare Independence is on there. Okay,
That was good. I remember that live.
The V-Fest?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so funny story about the V-Fest. I don't remember if I told you guys this. I think I did, but I when MIA was on stage performing, you guys were a little bit closer up, or maybe we were all standing like in the same area, but we were off to like where the gate was down the middle. And I remember seeing a lady that looked like Bjork that was like standing beside me. She had the hair, but she had big sunglasses on, and she was like
big swan dress.
No swan dress. She didn't wear swan dress.
You saw Bjork.
Was it her? And then I'm like, I think that's her. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to yell like if that's like, hey Bjork or something. Like I don't want to whip my ass like that photographer, but like, and then she went on stage. I'm like, that had to have been her because the hair was like almost the same or pretty much the same.
I remember I went to Iceland and they would be like me and my friend were just joking like, oh, is Bjork ever around? And they were like, yeah, she is, like all the time. Like if you go out, you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Like if you go to the right bar, you're gonna see her.
There's only
Like,
200,000 people here.
Yeah, it's like she was at, I forget what, like I don't remember the bar's name, but like she was at this place last night. So me and my friend were like, all right, we're going there tonight.
You guys just chasing.
And then we go there. Obviously, she's not there. We're bouncing around. Then you kind of hear, oh no, she's over here. And then
You guys are chasing.
but who knows?
Bjork
People are
around.
probably just bullshitting us to get us. Like,
That's almost certainly what happened.
yeah. But no, apparently it's common there to see like Bjork out or members of like Sigur Rós out or
That's it.
whatever other celebrities Iceland has now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Seemed like for a while there's a bunch of artists coming out of Iceland. But yeah.
Yeah, those are the only two that I can name.
Yeah, there's more, but I don't know. Can't think of them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That'd be
Became
cool.
a,
You
it became
watch
a
her-
thing for a while. Iceland.
You run into her, she's getting shit faced at a pub. She's like, it's my
Yeah.
birthday.
This
My birthday.
Bjork's got to be their like Iceland's biggest celebrity. Would you
Oh
say?
yeah,
Or, yeah.
probably.
So-
Yeah. I mean, she covers like I know like Sigur Rós is
It's either
big
her,
and stuff like
it's
that.
either
but she
her or
covers
Hafthor
multimedia.
Bjornsson. You know,
Right.
the mountain from Game of Thrones.
He might, yeah.
He's
You
the
might give her a
world's
run.
strongest man.
He might give
He's
her a
the
run.
world's strongest man. He should be more famous.
He's the mountain.
He's the mountain. No, he's legit the world's strongest man, though.
He's had that title for a little bit though, right?
I think so, like 2 years, 3 years.
Because doesn't he just do like extraordinary things? Like
Yeah, it's like
He's
the
like-
strong man.
like the strong man, but then he's like way beyond like the strongest man, like the second place.
I don't think he's
man.
like way beyond, but
Oh,
he's
okay.
there.
For some reason, I thought he was like just a freak.
No.
Like, I
He's
mean,
married,
he is.
he's
But,
married to a Canadian. He's in Toronto all the time.
ooh,
Hmm.
maybe we'll see him getting.
Maybe we'll
shit-faced on
see
his
him one
birthday.
day. He's hard to miss.
So I guess this can take us to our album or Bjork discography ranking question. So I'll let Ryan go first since
You already know my number one.
we know you're number one.
Yes.
I would put probably Vespertine, then Debut. I listen to a lot. I just like there's a lot of good songs on that, and then Post. And the only other album, well, Homogenic is probably better than Medulla. So that's my order. And then after that, I've lost track because once I listened to Medulla, I kind of dropped off.
Oh, yeah.
So here and there, I'll listen to some songs, but
So when we saw Bjork, you weren't familiar with that album?
no, all that live stuff was
Oh.
like all fresh.
You listened to Volta.
Yeah,
Yeah, Declare Independence is like
that's
Pretty
a good
good
song.
single.
It's a good song.
big song. And then another another thing I remember from that show is like when the fire would go off, it was like burning my
Yeah.
face. Like I'm like, how hot is it for her? It's just
Yeah.
like these
I
huge
remember
torches.
the first time I realized that was we were at an Edge Fest and Nickelback was playing and we didn't care, so we just walked to the very back of like the field. And when the flames went off, we could still feel them being like
Yeah,
like 2 football fields away. Crazy.
it's a lot of work being on stage.
Yeah.
It's a real job.
I know it's like a quick blast of the flame, but it's like is your hair getting singed or something like that. Just seems nuts.
Yeah, it's happened.
Do you want me to go, Anise, or do you want to go for album ranking?
I can go.
Go for it.
For me, I was kind of going back and forth on Post or Debut being my favorite, but I went with Post. So Post, Debut, and then I went back and forth on Homogenic and Volta being next, but I went Homogenic, then Volta, then Vespertine, then Villain Cura, then Biophilia, then Medulla, then Utopia. I went Utopia last because I remember downloading it when it first came out, listening to it once, and then keeping it on my iPod, and I was like, or my phone, iPod, keeping it on my phone, and I was like, I'm gonna keep this on here so I listen to it more. And then I never listened to it again up until this week.
That album collected digital dust.
It collected digital dust. And when I listened to it again, I was like, it's okay. But there's still songs on Medulla I like. So that's why I put Medulla ahead of it. But yeah.
No doubt, though, Medulla was second last for you, and it was the album right after this, and that's probably why I dropped off. It's
Yeah.
just like, okay.
Yeah. When like the thing is like the Villain Cura and Biophilia, like if you like Vespertine, I would say listen to those. They're of the same vein.
I want to, but I'm afraid I'm going to hear the same vocal licks, and I just don't want to hear them in a new context.
You might not, because it seems like it's a lot of the music is very much focused on her vocals now. So I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
She's doing a lot. I don't know.
Okay, fine.
Or don't listen to them.
I'll
I
try
don't
it.
know.
I'll try.
Don't listen to me.
Try it.
Don't
I'll ask
listen
Kyle
to it.
which
I
one
don't
I should
care.
listen to.
Declare Independence, Ryan. So I guess my ranking, I put Post first. That's a great album. Then I went
It is
Debut. No, sorry, I went Homogenic, then Debut.
Really?
Yeah, I like Homogenic quite a bit. Debu's really solid. Like those albums are like very tight together. And then Vespertine, and then I don't know if this is a recency bias because like Volta was the last thing I heard by Bjork, so this might be recency bias. I'm not sure, but I like doing Valnucura. I thought that one was okay, and then I went Volta, Biophilia, Utopia, and then Medulla. I'm just like I like the video for Triumph of the Heart, and that song's pretty cool, or Triumph of the Heart. But yeah, it's not one that I throw on. I've listened to it once before we were getting ready for this, and then once again this past week, and that's the most I've ever.
To be honest, even listening to it, like listening to Medulla and Utopia, this like getting ready for this, it was like hard to get through. I started like skipping through tracks.
Yeah,
I could say that.
I was like, I think it was partially too. I was like burnt out because once you get to like the homogenic, and after that you kind of run into that stretch of albums that are way more chill. I was kind of wanting to break free after like later on this week when I was sort of like I need something else to listen to. I was listening to like Tool and Armor Van Helden. I was listening to like the most like bombastic music I could listen to.
You just switch gears.
Yeah, no, I just needed to like release.
Okay, we've shit on Medulla a lot, but I just want to point out because I couldn't remember the song name before. Who Is It is an amazing song.
Yeah,
one of her best songs.
Yeah, that's the thing is like Medulla has some good songs. So I remember not liking it and then hearing a song after. I'm like, which album is this off of? And like Medulla, I'm like, oh, this was on there. Like I guess I was so like
just too much work. It's too much work to wait to get to Who Is It or whatever other song.
Well, because there's certain moments of the album where it's like complete silence.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. When you're making a music album, it doesn't feel like it's a good idea.
Yeah, I like. I don't know if like Triumph of a Heart is like without the video. If I would like that song because I listened to it a lot more because I saw the music video. I mean, have you seen that music video? It's kind of weird, but it's like great at the same time. It's basically she's like has this like a cat, and then it's like I guess her husband or something or her boyfriend, and then she goes out and gets shit faced at a pub. And like they're all doing like a cappella beat for the song, and then she like gets drunk and trips and scrapes up her face, and then her cat comes and picks her up from like a ditch, and like her cat grows into like human size, and then they start dancing. So it's really weird, but it works for that
fitting.
song.
Now, is the music different, like from the album and the video, or does it seem like it's the same track?
I'm not sure. It seems like almost like a live recording when they're doing the bar stuff.
Yeah,
that segment. So it could be an alternate track.
I don't know. I like Who Is It? There's like all these bells and stuff in the video version.
Yeah, it looks like. Well, it doesn't look like it's a band. Like they all look like they're people at a bar, or a pub.
I don't even think I've seen this video.
You never seen it? I thought. Yeah, I'm like.
Or maybe I had seen it. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like a mid 2000 gem. So right around when I kind of stopped listening or watching music videos as much.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, so I remember that song quite well. So I guess this can take us on to our next question. Is this album her peak?
Wow.
You can break down peak any way you like.
If we talk about her vocals, it might be her peak. I mean, because I gave up on listening, I could be wrong. Maybe her vocals get even better. But in terms of... That's the only peak it would probably I don't know, consistency. Maybe it's a peak of her consistency in terms of of like concept and working well with the album actually sounding good. It's not just a concept. But outside of that, it's not like her commercial peak, and I don't think it's probably the fan favorite. I don't know.
Or even like her creative peak. Probably wouldn't even that.
It's hard to give Bjork a creative peak.
I know that's true. Yeah, because like what is her peak?
It's like, although Anise says she's out of music ideas, so
I never said she's out of
music. He said she's washed up. No, I mean I would call this album her peak, but I don't call it her peak based off of the album alone. I think with everything combined going on at the time, you have the Oscar, you have the swan dress, it's all tied together. Pop culture push. This is probably her peak. It's not her highest selling album, but like it gives her. During this moments when she has the highest recognition, I guess the most clout.
I think it's also hard to judge because like just like scanning through the numbers like a little bit earlier today, she sells better in Canada than she does in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our perception of her might be even a little more skewed in the US because I feel like maybe in the US, it was when she did the swan dress and this album came out and the hype of all that. Because this is a time where I remember a lot of attention being paid to Bjork. And it was coming off of Homogenic. I remember Homogenic getting like number one on a lot of lists and stuff for that year. So it seemed like there was a lot of attention being paid to this. with everything, but yeah, I prefer the 90s stuff.
So what do you think is her peak? If you had to,
But I like this.
Oh, you think
like
it's on this?
like
Gotcha,
for her
gotcha.
fame.
yeah,
As far as
everything.
like commercially successful, but I don't know. It's hard to say like for artistic peak being early because she's still doing whatever the hell she wants and kind of controlling her own narrative.
And I will say, like, earlier songs are probably still more well known.
Yeah, but yeah, like this was the peak. This is like the time they were literally doing skits with her, like Celebrity Jeopardy on Saturday Night Live. She became like a celebrity they were making fun of. So, I don't know what's the best compliment is like parody or whatever.
Yeah.
So
True. Yeah, I mean, before I came here today, I saw it was a clip of her on Jay Leno. She's performing Cocoon, and like the other guests at that time were Bill O'Reilly was sitting on the couch, and then he's like, you want to sign this bike because it was like October 2001, so he's like, you want to sign this bike for charity because of 9/11, and he's like, don't forget to check out K-Pax with Kevin Spacey. And I guess he was the first guest, and I was like, whoa, what a fucking
We're not allowed to talk about that guy anymore.
Yeah,
what a great year.
what a time capsule right here. Like half these guys are canceled.
Yeah.
So I guess, what's her place in history? Is there a way that we can define it, or where does this album place in history, or where does Bjork place in
I
history?
think she's inspired a lot of artists, particularly a lot of young women, to push the boundaries and not fit into the pop mold or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because historically through music, you don't really get women. Like there are a handful of women throughout the history that were kind of like, you get your Nikos and your Janis Joplin but I think she's like in that conversation. So she is that important as a woman figure in music, especially in the 90s, because she was the only one kind of doing this sort of thing. Like she
still kind of is. She's her
like
own thing.
you had your Portishead had like a female singer and stuff as well, but it was very much her. It was her name. It was Bjork. She was the one in the center of it, and she's like any artist. Like I would put her in the same vein, like as an artist as like like I was saying before, Beck or David Bowie or Prince, or they're always just kind of doing their own thing, creating their own path, and even if it isn't mainstream or even if it isn't your cup of tea, it's always kind of interesting to listen to. Yeah. Even if you don't like it,
there's a lot of depth.
Yeah, there's a lot to the music, and she's. Like we're saying, she cares, so you hear it in the music when an artist is really putting their heart and soul into everything they're doing.
And with that depth, it becomes easier to like get into the music. You can keep listening to it. You can start to obsess about it. So she can develop like a cult following, which can go wrong sometimes. But like,
that's like I was saying today. I'm like not today when I messaged you guys like earlier this week, and I was like. I'm listening to Bjork at the gym. It's so cerebral. Yeah. Because you wouldn't think, because it's like at the gym you think you want something more high octane, but I was like so focused on the music, I was like almost like entering a different zone. I'm like, it's kind of like a different way of like kind of getting in this like a different type of zone. Like it was kind of an interesting experience.
Yeah.
How did it affect your workout?
I just literally felt like I was in the zone. Like I was just so toned out. It's like I didn't even feel my muscles when I was lifting stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's good workout music?
It was interesting enough.
Weird.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would have never thought of that.
And it was like it was when I messaged you guys, I was listening to Biophilia and Villancura. Those were the two albums I was listening to at the gym. So it was like not.
Yeah, that would have been wild.
You wouldn't think to put that on when you're I don't know, but it worked.
Cool.
Like leg day, Bjork.
Yeah, leg day, need Bjork.
Do you guys know about, or have you heard about the crazy guy who went insane and tried to kill Bjork?
Yeah.
Like
Is that the guy she attacked?
I could look up his name.
No.
I know what you're talking about.
She didn't attack him. No.
No, he sent her a package with acid in it, but then the post office caught it before, and then he made a video. I think it was like 12 hours or the super long video.
He was making videos like every day, like basically vlogging.
Okay.
The lead up to this like assassination attempt is like just
right, because she was supposed to get the package, she gets it, dies, and then he killed himself on tape to like be with her in the afterlife, but like the package never made it.
He didn't really like want to be with her. He wanted to like send her a message, or he was upset. He was upset with who she was with or something. It was like I think she was dating someone he didn't like.
That's weird. Well, I'll tell you, because I know that reporter where she attacks a reporter. Apparently, that reporter had been following her all week. That's
I did
why
see that.
That's
she
what
never
I thought
pressed
you
charges.
meant by.
The reporter never pressed charges.
Yeah, because apparently he was like stalking her. She'd show up places and he'd already be
Oh,
there.
it was another woman.
Was another one?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it was a female
Oh,
reporter.
crazy.
Yeah.
No,
But
you can watch this guy's videos. It's on YouTube, and you can watch him like talking to the camera and like he's insane. Like half the time he's like naked in these videos, just talking about Bjork, about what the hell?
Oh God.
How he's gonna, I don't know, melt her face with acid. Oh, and he's actually like building the bomb in these videos, and he realizes it's not gonna work, so he switches the design and is like,
how much of these videos did you watch then?
I didn't watch any of them.
Well, I was like, I have them all
listened to somebody
downloaded.
talking about
I know, twice.
It's like I have them all downloaded.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, this just looks like too depressing. Like there's a screenshot of it. Like,
Yeah,
on Wikipedia.
don't- I
I'm
wouldn't
like, I
watch
don't
it.
want to spend any time watching this. I don't want to go to like Live Leak and see all this shit.
The story is pretty crazy, and it's just I think without, if you didn't have the depth to your music, nobody could get really obsessed at that level. So it's like a double-edged sword. You get a cult
Right.
following, but you get a few crazies.
Well, I think that's any. It seems like every
It's
musician, every artist has like their crazies that follow them around.
Yeah.
Like Jodie Foster had a bunch. It's like, explain that. But, but I mean,
Contact. That's how.
yeah. And like, I think I saw her quote after. She was like, please don't take my music literally. It's just music. Like it's not meant to be
Yeah.
taken literally. I guess for me, I think her place in history I think she's probably one of the most critically respected women to come out, female artists to come out in the last 25 plus years.
Mhm.
Even from when she was doing Sugar Cubes, like that stuff, I know she had some credit and some momentum from that. But once Debut came out, that was like just a whole new thing,
Yeah. 'Cause
and
you have
everybody
to
was on
think
board.
like we talk about what's her face now, Billie Eilish. It's like, oh, she got the contract at like 16 or whatever. Bjork had it at 14.
hmm
So it's
That's pretty impressive.
yeah. So she's of the same vein. That's why I was kind of bringing up in the Billie Eilish video. I'm kind of interested in hearing where Billie Eilish takes this
Mhm.
because we've seen other artists like Bjork, or there's Connor Oberst that came in young, and then you see where they go in the future, and it's usually they do something interesting. But
That's pretty cool. Like she had at 14, they must have known. Like I'm sure she wasn't a typical pop star. They weren't like
No.
prepping her to be Britney Spears at 14. So yeah,
imagine that universe.
I'll watch that video on YouTube.
Sorry
show
for
me the
cutting you
home
off,
footage of
Gord.
that.
I cut.
Oh no,
cut you off.
I didn't have anything. Sorry. Yeah, if you're going back to the history thing, I mean, I think you guys also hit on this too. I like how she pushes the boundaries technically, and with what art can do and all that stuff. Like she's avant-garde, so she's just all about pushing the boundaries.
Yeah. And I like how her album covers are always like a picture of her, but it's just takes on a whole different theme every album that kind of fits with the album.
It really
the
does,
music.
yeah.
It's
So,
like a
like,
whole
I guess-
package.
I guess Debut's the only one where it just seems like a straight up photo, and then everything else has like some sort of layers to it. Like
Pretty
I mean, you could
much.
almost say
that would make sense.
Post is probably a good one where it's like it seems still to be kind of a natural photo just with a crazy costume on, but then after that it's like
Yeah.
this has been altered and
Yeah.
layers and shit.
People got better with Photoshop.
And I remember her
Over the
like
years.
her album covers. I just remember seeing them before I was even listening to her music. I remember going into HMV and seeing like the post debut and homogenic album covers like all the time, and just her face. Just even before I even knew who she was, I knew her face.
Yeah, she's got like a very distinct face, and like her voice is very I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like she's like quiet, like almost like childish, or just like she doesn't like. I mean, I've only seen a few interviews of her. Haven't seen her like dive into her music.
I just remember like It's Oh So Quiet. I thought was like the perfect representation. 'Cause she goes like from It's Oh So Quiet, and then she's
like the scream.
Yeah.
you bet.
Yeah.
This is it.
Just wailing away.
Shows that range.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she's so expressive. That's why, I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder if they picked her up for her voice or like her musicality.
Well, that's the thing with her voice. Like her, not even just like how good of a voice she has, like range wise, just how distinct her voice is like what attracts you to the music almost.
And if she wants to like express a certain like feeling or tone or give a scene or something, she'll go right into that character. Like she'll really embrace it and she'll sing just like that. So she's not afraid. She's not afraid to like twist her voice or manipulate it to.
Yeah, and when you go online,
with
if you
music.
search, like so many artists have like done covers of her songs, and even like you see an artist with a great voice, and it still doesn't sound right. Like there's a video of what's her name, that Kelly Uchis doing a cover of one of her songs. I can't really remember now, but it's and she has a great voice. I love her voice. I love her music, but it's like, just doesn't sound right singing.
Yeah.
Would you like to see Billie Eilish do a cover of Bjork?
Sure, I'm down for that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, while you're looking that up, I agree with her voice. I think it's one of the most unique voices I probably in all of rock. Like, it's top 5 for sure. You know, it's very distinct. When you hear just a piece of it, you know who it is. And then, the craziness that she'll do is, like, she'll roll her R's and like, do weird stuff like that. Like, it's for, sometimes she'll whisper, and then other times it's big booming and powerful. Like, it's all across the board.
Yeah.
Very unique.
The cover was of Venus as a Boy by Kelly Uchis
nice.
For the Like a Version on Triple J.
So I guess before we kind of get into or ask the question, just a random question I wanted to ask you guys is what is another female artist or another band that you would recommend that's close to Bjork, but like it's kind of like a good stepping stone before getting into Bjork? If some, like, for listeners who haven't listened to Bjork before.
I'd say for a modern listener, Grimes.
Yeah, I agree with
Grimes' music is kind of the vein where she can make kind of a poppy song, she can make a dancey song, she can make a downbeat song, an electronic song. Like, she's kind of open to, she kind of created a lane for herself where she can kind of do anything. So for a modern listener, I'd say if you're a Grimes fan, listen to Bjork, because I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of her influence is coming from.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's probably like the best example.
Yeah. I got to it in a weird way, going through like the post-rock influence and then landing in Vespertine. So there's probably not, that probably wouldn't apply to anybody today. That's just an accident of my own history.
Actually, I think like it would apply, because maybe not the post-rock, but like one of the biggest YouTube channels, like that lo-fi beats for studying and relaxing, and that music is very akin to, and it's one of the most popular YouTube channels.
That's
like,
true, yeah.
Thousands and thousands of views at any given time, and it's playing 24/7.
I have listened to this, yes.
Yes, and it's pretty much like I was saying, back in the day, I was throwing on Kid A and Bjork and Animal Collective and Boards of Canada and stuff while I was studying. Now people are throwing on this playlist. So
I guess it kind of depends on where you board the Bjork ship. Like, where you're coming from. I mean, the stuff in the 90s, if you were listening to some pop stuff, like just some like 80s dance music, you would probably like some early Bjork stuff.
Or even like the trip hop, like Portishead.
Yeah,
if you want
that
90s
too.
stuff.
Yeah,
like Tricky.
Yeah,
whatever.
That's why it's like hard to narrow down, because even just getting into her at first, like I'd hear a song like Army of Me, and it's like, oh man, does she have any more songs like this? And then she doesn't.
No,
really.
She doesn't.
But then you kind of like discover, a different song. Like, does she have any more like this? And it's like, no, she doesn't. But then you kind of find her lane, and you're like, oh, Venus is a Boy, Yoga, Bachelorette. Like, okay, I'm kind of seeing where her music is falling into now. So I don't know. It seems like if for any type of music fan, she has something.
You know what? I think if you want to try Bjork, you have to go in with like open ears and an open mind. You have to go in knowing it's going to be weird. There's going to be weird stuff.
Yeah, and you have to listen to, especially when you get to the earlier stuff, you have to listen to like more than one song. I can't just be like, listen to this one song. If you like this one song, you're going to like this.
Because nothing's like represent.
Yeah, like Hyper Ballad.
That's the one.
Hyper Ballad would be the closest, because it's like an early song where the later stuff kind of sounds akin to it a bit, but it's not as, it gets kind of dancey at the end, and where the electronic beats and stuff come in. But yeah, I'd say Hyper Ballad would be a good introduction.
That's the one I recommend to people, because when that bass hits right away, it's like, oh, that gets your attention,
so
right?
Good. That song's awesome.
Robin has a cover of that online. It's pretty good.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
And she's really singing it. Robin is singing it in front of Bjork.
Nerve-wracking.
Not like right in front of her, but like she's in the audience.
Oh, okay.
Still
I was like, wait, is it like a battle? Like Bjork's gonna like sing a Robin song at her?
And then
start doing the throat singing.
And then Bjork sings "Dancing on My Own."
Exactly. Yeah, I would I would recommend, like, okay, the greatest hits got me into Bjork, so I would recommend that, I guess, first. But like the first 3 albums, all of them are like kind of eclectic, or like each track is different, but every track is like a banger. Like there isn't a misstep on those first 3 albums. So if you listen to any of those albums from beginning to end, I think you're probably going to like Bjork. Then if you like those, then maybe take the next step. Maybe Selma songs, or like the Dancer in the Dark soundtrack. Maybe that, and then get into this, and then you might be on your way.
But if you're coming from the other direction too, like if you listen to like the Weirdo, like if you're an Aphex Twin fan, or you're whatever fan.
Or a folk fan or something
or a folk
like that.
fan. Yeah, if you're a folk fan that's kind of open to not just acoustic instruments or something.
Yeah, you'll dig.
Yeah,
this.
because you can attach, because a lot of these songs are really, especially in the later albums, it's just, the songs are hinged on the vocal performance.
Mhm.
And her vocals are so great, her voice is great, her vocal performance, like you were saying, she takes on the character of the song
Yeah.
or the moment of what she's singing about. So it makes it very like operatic, just her vocals.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's something for everyone.
But Vespertine, would you start there? I don't know.
To recommend to like
It
somebody who's
depends.
never heard Bjork, I personally wouldn't.
I wouldn't, but it
I'd probably
depends.
recommend Post.
It depends what their background. Like I was saying, if they come in and they're like, if I'm like, what do you listen to? And they tell me, oh, I'm a huge fan of, I don't know, just more some stuff similar to this. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, who knows? Like if it was like Debut that I heard instead of Vespertine, maybe at that point I wouldn't have been into it. I'd be like, it's just like pop music from the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
it's
it just
funny-
depends where you come from.
Like I was saying, I just at the beginning, I didn't even know if I liked her because it was hard to pinpoint down what she was. And as a kid, it almost feels almost just as important to pinpoint, like, what genre are you?
Right.
Like, are you rock? Are you pop? Are you rap?
You
Are
can't be
dance?
both.
You can't be both. Pick one. Whereas nowadays, in a song, it'll be multiple genres.
I don't know. Yeah. Was it always like that? We just didn't notice it. Like maybe when you're younger, it just matters more to put things.
Well,
in
there's
boxes,
less
but
because back in the day, it's not like you
It's
could just
true.
jump on. Because like for us, like we were saying, like you hear a Bjork song on Much Music, it's not like we can just jump on Spotify, listen to the whole album.
yeah, it was a treat.
It was a treat, and then. You didn't know, like you would hear these songs, you're like, you couldn't pinpoint her, so you didn't want to buy it because a CD costs like $25 or whatever, $20.
Yep.
So yeah, it wasn't until like downloading and used CDs where I kind of got into her back catalog and into the album tracks. So
I don't even know how much you spent when you bought this album for your brother. Like, was it
No,
like an
this was
import
a-
or anything like
no,
that?
no. At this point, it was like $12.99.
Oh, okay. It was like
Yeah.
brand new, I guess.
Yeah. Because this was like the first album I think where it was, I was caught up. Where I knew Debut, I knew Post, I knew Homogenic, and
Yeah.
then Vespertine came out, and it was like a kind of a, like I was up to date. It wasn't like, oh shit, another new Bjork song. When I only really knew the singles, I kind of knew the albums at this point.
So I guess I'll ask any final thoughts before we ask the question. Anything that we might have missed?
Watch Dancer in the Dark.
I've never seen that. Is it good?
It's good. Yeah.
I was going to watch it this week, but then I'm like, it wasn't like available on demand or anything.
It's
I'm
been
like, I guess I have
years
to
since I
download it.
watched it. I remember. I think it's the only time Kyle ever lent me a movie to watch.
Is it because you never gave it back to him? You still got it?
No, I
Let me
gave it
borrow
back
dude.
to him, and I remember I watched it in a weird way too. I remember I watched half the movie and I had to turn it off for some reason, and then it was like a week later I watched the second half, and then I still had I was borrowing and I hadn't given back to him yet, and it was like a month later. I'm like, I'm gonna watch it again from beginning to end before I give it back. Yeah, it was good.
Was it Criterion?
I probably not.
Around this era, I remember movies when I first started hanging out with you guys. Movies like Memento was big, Requiem, Spun. I remember that one was like a really
Mulholland
big
Drive.
movie.
All
was
great
that-
Oh yeah,
movies.
Mulholland Drive. Was that?
All great movies.
All
Yeah.
great movies. Yeah,
Very
that early
confusing.
2000s. Donnie Darko a little bit.
I never liked that.
I know I was never really in it, but
Garbage.
I remember there was kind of a push. I heard about it through you
I remember
guys.
Vincent
Maybe
Tran was a
Kyle.
huge fan of that movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
All right, so I guess we can ask the question: is this album essential? Who wants to go first? You want me to kick it off, or
Go for it, Gordon.
All right, I will say I'll give it a no, mostly because like I said, this is the third time. I'm a pretty casual Bjork fan, and I like her first three albums much more than this one. I think this is a great album, and it's a good Bjork album. But I like the first three more, or I listen to them more often, so that's why I'll give them the edge over this one. And I'll say no, but check out the other three. In my opinion, I think they're really good.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna say it's her best album, but it's not essential because it doesn't, like, Bjork is so weird. This can't be the album like that would represent her because it's too its own thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if she was gonna have an essential album, it might be Post or Debut, one of those two. But yeah, this one's great, but it's just off the beaten path. So maybe it's not essential. I don't know. What do you think, Anise?
Yeah. It's weird because I would say it's almost for the music that came after this, like when the indie rock boom happened in the early 2000s, and then like when you got closer to 2010, you started getting the electronic stuff. You started hearing a lot of this stuff, and I think a lot of similar stuff to this. And I think the building blocks of that was albums like Kid A and this. So in a sense, it is kind of important in that vein.
Right.
But when it comes to Bjork's actual catalog, I would not recommend this one first. I would only recommend it if like a certain type of person. So
Right.
I'd probably say no. For like, I'm with you guys. It'd probably be one of like debut or post or something that would be more
Yeah. I would
of
say
the
like
essential music, because at that point it was so different and so cutting edge and so everything. Whereas at this point we were primed for this stuff based on the music that was being released in the 90s. So it's hard to pinpoint, but it does seem like it was important to some facets, because like for all of us, we're all saying this was kind of like our intro, and this was her peak of in a certain sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird, because Bjork is an interesting figure, because it's almost it's one of those like it's all important. You can't really pinpoint it down.
Yeah.
Just Bjork is kind of important.
And I wouldn't say the best of is enough. The greatest hits is enough of a representation to even.
Well, it's hard to
It's
say.
a good gateway, I think.
It's hard to say
It's
best
pretty
of,
good,
because you can
but-
say best of for any artist. You can be like,
That's
oh yeah,
true.
the best of for
That's true. That's-
whoever
that's
is
not really
their
fair.
best album. Of
I would never
course,
say,
it's
yeah,
literally the best.
You can't
of.
say the greatest hits is Bjork's essential. Like that's just
That's
not-
feels
that's
wrong.
cheating.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
Well,
Yeah.
Unless
it
she
is
has
wrong.
one of those, 2050. What is it? One of those essential with the silver CD case.
You buy at Walmart for
Yeah, you
like
buy it at
$2.99
Walmart for like $5 at the checkout.
besides CCR
Yeah,
essential.
it's like essential. But nowadays it's like essential Britney Spears. It's like weird.
Do they still make those? I haven't seen one of those in a long time.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't even. Do they still make CDs?
Yeah, I
Nobody's
guess, yeah.
buying them.
Nobody
So,
takes up
yeah.
too much room at the store.
Everyone just buys vinyl.
That's true.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are more record players out than CD players yet. Is it gonna like?
Oh yeah, that's like the CD sales like has been steadily dropping for like the past 10 years or whatever, and records has been going up.
Yep.
Mhm.
Collectors.
Yeah, it seems like records have always just kind of stayed consistent. Well, they almost died
Well-
out, but then they've had a cult following, so they've been consistent.
Well, because it's more of like a collector's thing.
Yeah.
Whereas even now, like I have some records, but I'm more selective in what I buy. Like I wouldn't go just buy any new release, but at the same time, buying a record is like $35, $40. It isn't $10, 2 for $20 or
yeah,
whatever.
you gotta make sure you want it.
Yeah,
Definitely, the art looks better on the record. So
It does.
I support that change.
mm-hmm.
Nice. So I guess that's it. Unless you guys have anything else to add
No,
before we wrap
I'm
it up.
good.
It's cool.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us this week. If anybody's actually watching live, good.
Cool.
Thank you. You guys are like super
Hopefully
fans.
everything worked.
But yeah, thanks for joining us this week on the Essential Albums podcast. Next week we're doing. You said Radiohead. Which one?
Okay, computer.
Pretty good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a pick from our fan Kyle,
Yeah.
Yep.
all the way from Japan.
Oh, nice.
Thanks, Kyle, for that.
Thanks,
And
Kyle.
so thanks for joining us. Join us again, I guess, hopefully the same time next week. Music by Ryan Dugal and artwork by Vincent Tran. See you guys next week.
Peace.